Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
A truly shambolic monsoon session of our parliament has ended. Almost no business got done. Most of the time got wasted in noise. And now you have a phase where both sides are busy name calling. In fact, 7 ministers of the government, Modi government, came out today to blame the opposition for what had gone wrong. And as you will see the pictures that Praveen Jain, my colleague, our photo editor, has taken, it's almost like Hindi में बोलते हैं कि पानी पी पी के मारा है, right? So you can see ministers, pictures of ministers, and you will see them on my screen also, sipping water and then saying something unkind about opposition. And opposition has also paid back in the same coin, or actually opposition started this first. So parliament is gone, this session is gone. We can talk about that, we can feel sorry, and we've been doing that all of the past several days. But at some point, after all, this was a session of Indian National Parliament. Something happened there. At some point, I'm not saying we should look at half the glass that's full, maybe less than half the glass is full, but some part of the glass is full. So there is some good news from this parliament. And that good news comes from some of the bills that have been passed. Now I know that there is a lot of objection, and I shared that objection, and I've spoken about it in one of the earlier episodes of Cut the Clutter, that you passed bills at an average of 7 minutes per bill. And these are important bills, no discussion, no debate, no select committee, no nothing, no parliamentary committee. This is terrible. But now these bills are the law, because both houses have passed them. They will go to president, they will get the assent, which is a formality. So these have now become the law. So I will not list all the laws for you. That again, my young colleague Apurva Mandhani has been doing in her series KYC, or Know Your Constitution, in English and Hindi. So please do follow those videos from her. What I will talk about is one particular law change which has great implications for India's economy and India's economic reform. It also has great implications for the direction of India's political economy, because ultimately in democracy, everything comes from politics. This is the amendment that was passed almost on the last day that led to the ruckus in Rajya Sabha, which is now leading to all this name calling, who beat up whom, whether the opposition MPs beat up the women marshal, or did the marshals beat up or rough up the opposition MPs. That tamasha is going on. Each side is saying, mera video, tere video se kharab hai, etc. While that goes on, this bill has become a reality. This bill is the General Insurance Business Nationalization Amendment Bill of 2021. This will now become an act. Now, all opposition parties, most non-BJP parties, including some which might vote with the BJP otherwise, they also wanted this to be sent to a parliamentary committee for review, but government didn't want to do it. Why? Because in this budget, the government had committed that they were going to privatize one of the 4 government-owned general insurance companies. And privatizing means government's equity or government shareholding has to drop below 51%. That wasn't going to be possible without amending this law. This law, now there are some phases when India's economy or India's political economy was toxified. I mean, okay, that's my point of view, that's an opinion. But now if government is having to reverse many of those decisions, some in an upfront manner, some in a stealthy manner, chupchap, some with maramari, passing a bill in halla in parliament, some through some consensus, that means there was something wrong with many of the things that were done in the past. So if you ask me, the 2 phases in which India's economy, political economy, went the wrong way, one was the mid-50s. What happened in the mid-50s? 1955, the Congress party held its famous AICC session at Awadi in Tamil Nadu. Awadi is where now T-72, T-90 tanks are produced. At that session, they gave a distinct socialist direction to India's political economy. That was the most decisive left turn in India's political economy. In 1948, there was an industrial policy resolution by the same government of India. Of course, that was before the constitution came in, which had talked more freely about a mixed economy. The 1955 resolution at Awadi, the Awadi resolution, actually pointed India towards a state-controlled economy. 1956, Indian Parliament passed a resolution, industrial policy resolution, that basically said all industries are divided in three categories, right? And what are these three categories? Hold your breath. So, three schedules. The first schedule, Schedule A, industries which will be the exclusive domain of Sarkar-e-Hind, Bharat Sarkar Huzur Mai Baap. And if you see that list, that is 17 key industries, and go take your mind back to the 50s, तब तो कोई सॉफ्टवेयर नहीं था, तब तो IT नहीं था, e-commerce नहीं था. All the major industries were now to become monopolies of government of India. Schedule B were again industries, a bunch of them, which were going to be primarily state controlled, and occasionally the private sector might be allowed to come in a little bit by way of supplementing the government effort. I mean, even automobile was kept for the government. And the third category was other again industries where private sector could come in, but again not laissez-faire, not they could come in if somebody wanted to set up a business, you had to still go get a license. And the license also told you how much you can produce. So if you sought a license to make 1 lakh cars, somebody will give you a license in Udyog Bhavan for making 10,000 cars. If you made 11,000, there will be trouble. And that is what led to that first toxification of India's political economy, and everything flowed from there. The second toxification took place between 1969 and 1975 under Indira Gandhi. So the first one was under Nehru, second one was under Indira Gandhi. So Indira Gandhi, when she faced a challenge from the old guard in the Congress party, then she divided the Congress party on the left-right lines. And she said all these Buddhas of the past, they were basically sold out to capitalists, Americans, blah, 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 etc., etc. And now she was going to usher in the perfect socialist world. So she signaled it with what? She signaled it with what I think is the biggest economic folly made by an Indian political leader ever. That was the nationalization of all private banks in India. Government wanted to run banks. It had the State Bank of India. It could invest more in State Bank of India. It could set up more banks if they wanted to. But to take away everybody's bank and convert all banking into a government monopoly. And once again, I repeat the line that I use often, but that line should be repeated all the time, that all monopolies are bad, but government monopolies or public sector monopolies are the worst of all. And they are the worst of all in many different ways. They are the least productive, they pay their employees the least, they pay their shareholders the least, and they do the least amount of business, and you get really very little value for your buck as a taxpayer, because effectively in a public sector company, every taxpayer, every citizen is a shareholder, and taxpayer doesn't just mean people who pay income tax. As VP Singh used to say in his election campaign on Bofors, he used to tell the poorest in UP that Rajiv Gandhi has stolen stuff from your home, and people say how, and he would take out a packet of BD or maybe a packet of or a matchbox and say जब आप ये बीड़ी खरीदते हो, जब आप ये माचिस खरीदते हो, आप इसमें 10 पैसे देते हो, उसमें से 2 पैसा सरकार को टैक्स जाता है, उससे सरकार आपके लिए तोप खरीदती है. उस तोप में राजीव गांधी ने हेराफेरी करी तो आपके घर में चोरी हुई कि नहीं? द एग्जैक्ट एक्सप्रेशन यूज वाज आपके घर में सेंध लगी कि नहीं? सेंध, आई डोंट नो हाउ टू ट्रांसलेट दिस इनटू इंग्लिश, बट दैट इज सॉर्ट ऑफ द ओल्ड फैशन वे ऑफ committing a burglary when you cut a hole into somebody's wall or window and walk in through that and take stuff out. So that's how in public sector all of us are stakeholders. That nationalization of banks, along with that, she abolished the privy purses and benefits of the princes. The same princes in the course of time came back to the Congress party. In fact, Congress party even named a street in Delhi in the name of one of them, where the name carries the former feudal ruler's title. Anyway, hypocrisy is not new to socialists. Anybody but socialists particularly, because they also come from a pulpit of a high moral ground. Anyway, so she then carried out, once she saw that these things worked, they fired people's imagination. She swept the 1971 election, although everybody had combined against her. Then she started a series of nationalizations. And that's how all the companies that many governments have tried to sell in the past 25 years, that is HPCL, BPCL, Oil India Limited, etc., these were all nationalized. Most of these were multinational corporations working in India, Esso, Caltex, companies like that. But Indo-Burma Petroleum, these were all nationalized. In the same phase, terrible things were done. In the same phase, coal was nationalized. All coal was nationalized in India. That is what several governments have now tried to undo. Modi government has recently taken a further step on it by allowing private owners of mines to also sell the coal they take out to any buyer, not just for their own captive use, because that was very wasteful. So coal was nationalized at that point, and all coal companies were put into the government's control. It was in that awful phase, that dark phase for India's political economy, the second dark phase of toxification of India's political economy, that in 1972, Mrs. Gandhi passed the General Insurance Business Nationalization Act of 1972. What did that act do? Whatever that act do, this amendment is trying to undo that. And it has not taken just this one amendment. There was an amendment made in Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time in 2002 also, which took away some of the poison, but a lot still remained. So this amendment, I will tell you how it changes things, but I will first tell you what did that law do to general insurance business. Now, insurance is two types. One is life insurance, Zindagi ke saath bhi, Zindagi ke baad bhi. Whoever wrote that line for LIC, I'd like to meet the gentleman and give him a wooden spoon as a prize. But sorry for my nutty sense of humor. I mean, how do you tell somebody हम आपके साथ जिंदगी के साथ भी हैं, जिंदगी के बाद भी हैं? जिंदगी के बाद तो भगवान ही होता है ना, अब भगवान तो नहीं है. Anyway, LIC, so life insurance in India was nationalized in 1956. So 1955, the Awadi resolution of the Congress Party. 1956, the Parliament resolution on industrial policy in India, the direction should now be socialist. And in fact, if you read that language, it is quite hairy language. It says, establishment of a socialistic pattern of society, that is the objective, where the principal means of production are under social ownership or control, right? That was the beginning of the license quota Raj. That is when all life insurance in India was nationalized by Jawaharlal Nehru, and all those companies were put under Life Insurance Corporation of India. Modi government is now trying to list that at least in the markets. I think they'll struggle to do it this year as they had promised, but even if it happens next year, that will be a big change because it will bring some transparency. The second thing that happened was, in 1972, when Mrs. Gandhi passed this law, it said that in India, all general insurance, आपके गाड़ी का insurance, fire का insurance, चोरी का insurance, shipping का insurance, आपका courier में packet आ रहा है उसका insurance, all that insurance is general insurance, right? We have reporters going to troubled areas, we buy insurance for them for working in hazardous areas, that is general insurance. So she then, through this law, said all general insurance business in India is also now taken over by the government of India. एक बार में किया, right? झटका से काट दिया उसको. So 55 private companies in India, private general insurance companies in India, and 52 foreign general insurance companies in India that were operating. That is 107 companies, 55 plus 52. 107 companies were nationalized. Government took over all their shares. These were put under the control of a larger company called General Insurance Corporation of India, that is GIC. And under that, these 107 companies were then consolidated or basically collected in 4 companies, just 4 companies, and you'll be seeing these 4 companies all the time, signboards, advertising, etc., etc. Ironically, competing with each other for the same business when they were a monopoly. So these 4 companies, and again you can see the political sort of thinking and bureaucratic thinking behind it. National Insurance Company, New India Assurance Company, Oriental Insurance, and United India Insurance. Now, one each one was set up in a different city. So one will look after north, south, east, west, like that. So National Insurance was set up, headquarters was in Kolkata. New India Assurance, New Delhi. Oriental Insurance, Bombay, as it was called then. Now it's Mumbai. United India Insurance, Madras, which is Chennai now. So the same government running the same business divides it in 4 companies, tell the 4 companies to compete amongst themselves. This is like a set of parents producing 4 twins and saying, बच्चों तुम्हारा एक ओलंपिक कराता हूँ, है ना? तो जो जीत जाएगा उसका गोल्ड मेडल, जो नंबर 2 उसका सिल्वर, जो थर्ड है वो तो जैसे बॉक्सिंग में होता है, ब्रॉन्ज विल बी शेयर्ड. So that is how government of India ruined India's insurance business. What this amendment does is it puts the clock back on it again. What it does is that it now says that government of India can divest, can reduce its stake in any of these companies below 51%. Once it goes below 51%, it does not have control over the company. The other thing that this amendment does, I'm not giving you the details because that's too minutiae. The other thing it does is that the powers that the government had over these companies, once the government divests, that power will pass on to the board of the company. The board of the company can take a decision, including on HR policies, salaries, employment terms, etc. That's why you see that public sector unions are protesting about this. So this law has made these changes. Before that, even Vajpayee in 2002 had amended this law at great difficulty in Parliament, and some of that was also done in Halla, great difficulty in Parliament, and that then said, all that law said was, that amendment, the 2002 amendment said was, that Government of India will continue to own these companies as it was owning earlier, but GIC will no longer own them. So GIC will transfer all the shares that it had in these 4 companies. These 4 companies functioned as GIC's subsidiaries. The GIC will transfer all those shares to Government of India. So Government of India took shares out of one pocket, put those on the other pocket. And then government said, we'll run these directly. So GIC does not become a super holding company of this. And GIC then was told, so GIC's question was, what will we do? We were running these companies. So they were told, you will now here on be just a reinsurer. What is a reinsurer? That there can be 20 insurance companies, they can have exposure to so many risks. So they in turn go and buy insurance with a reinsurer. So a company may insure 100 ships, right? But that company then covers its own risk over those ships with a reinsurer and pays some premium there as well. That is to divide the risks so you don't have a situation where the company sinks. In fact, when that previous big storm came into America, George Bush's time, then 7 of America's big general insurers actually went down the tube because even the reinsurers could not cover for their losses, for catastrophic losses. So GIC now is purely a reinsurer. The reason I took you back to 1955-56 and 1969-75 and listed those as among the 2 worst periods for India's political economy was just this. That since 1991, actually I would say since 1980, every government of India has tried to step back from this. But once you make a wrong decision, everybody backs it because what is wrong is popular, right? And anybody who questions what is popular is then seen as somebody's stooge or the other. So nobody stops a bad policy from being made, except that once it's made, it becomes very difficult to reverse it. So it's now taken, say 1991 reform started, 30 years now to detox India's political economy a little bit. And it is not as if people had not seen what was going wrong with India. So just before he passed away, Sardar Patel had said that a government which engages itself in trading activities will come to grief. That is translated into heartland Hindi, जिस देश का राजा व्यापारी उसकी प्रजा भिखारी, right? Sardar Patel had said this, but he was gone by now when Nehru and others took the Congress party to hard left. And Congress party itself had people who were liberal, who were more laissez-faire, but they were completely ignored. In the course of time, they left. Many of them joined Swatantra Party. they became India's first genuine libertarians. In fact, this is just part of our incredible political history. In 1944, a man called A.D. Shroff. A.D. Shroff was a banker, entrepreneur in Bombay. He was also the chairman of many companies, including Investment Corporation of India, Bank of India, New India Assurance, where it used to be a private company. In 1944, he had attended the Bretton Woods meeting when a new global structure for finance and development, etc., was being set up after the Second World War. And because India did not have a government then, India was not independent, he was there in his private capacity. And he, with some other Indian entrepreneurs, produced in the same year something called the Bombay Plan. That is to build India economically once India became independent. So idealism for building India or rebuilding India did not just come from socialists, it also came from good capitalists. But they felt left out as Congress made this hard turn left under Nehru between 1955 and 56. And as that happened, and as that became imminent, in 1954, A.D. Shroff founded an organization called Forum of Free Enterprise. Today, if you Google it, you will find even on Wikipedia maybe a one-line entry, right? And Freedom of Free Enterprise then started campaigning for a laissez-faire, free economy, saying this kind of forced socialism is bad, that India will pay a price for it, and India did end up paying a price for it, but Forum of Free Enterprise never gave up. Having said that, I will tell you a little personal story to conclude this episode of Cut the Clutter. In 1976 January, I was a journalism student, and as part of my curriculum, I came to spend 6 weeks as a student intern at the Times of India office in Delhi, which is 3 buildings away from where I am sitting right now in the Express building. Now, this was the emergency, the peak of the emergency, and there was no work, even for regular journalists, so how would I get any work? So, chief reporter then, Mr. B.K. Joshi, would give us no work. There was another trainee with us. So, one day I walked up to him and I said, why don't you give us any work? So, he said, this is the emergency. Even my reporters don't have any work. Why should I give you any work? I said, give me something that I can go and see, do. So, just to dissuade me from becoming a journalist, he bent down like this. He looked at his waste paper basket and took out one invite that he had thrown away. What was that invite? It was some lecture by a gentleman called Mr. Pai at something called Forum of Free Enterprise. And that was at YMCA building, Jaising Road in Delhi. So in innocence, I was 19 yet. In innocence, I picked that card and I went to Forum of Free Enterprise. And I heard Mr. Pai speak and some other people speak. And that is when I, in my mind, totally conditioned by a socialist system, or maybe totally toxified in a socialist system, I came back thinking at an early age that free enterprise is the key to a society and a country progressing. So I thought it was important to mention that even in the darkest times for Indian entrepreneurship, there were idealists who set up a system and set up a campaign to basically spread good economics. And now it seems lately that they are winning.